listening to Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody Cedarstrom in the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and there is power in truth because power talks. Welcome to Power Talks on this Monday morning. This is Beth Ann, and good morning, Melody. How are you doing today?
I'm just doing fantastic. It's Monday, and good morning, everyone.
Monday, and I'm having a baby today.
Okay.
We are waiting on a grandchild today, so we're all excited about that.
Oh, that's...
And last week I told you what day it was. It was National Pie Day or Eat a Red Apple Day. So I thought, well, we'll just start with that this morning. How's that?
That's fine.
It's National, which I'm not wearing any, Sock Day. National Dice Day. Let's go play some craps. And National Cookie Day. Let's go eat a cookie. Anyway, that's what I have.
Always about food. Cookies,
always
pies, cookies, pies.
Yes, and then we wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you have a good weekend?
Yes, it was. We actually saw a holiday show, the 10 Tenors. They're from Australia.
Oh.
And, they sang a lot of, there's 10 of them, of course, all nice, young-looking men.
Tenors.
And they sang a lot of Christmas songs, and they did some Jersey Boy songs, and so they did some Australia songs and so forth. It was very, very lovely show. They very, all the profits that they make, they're actually going to be donating to the Jude's Children's Hospital, and they actually cut their costs because it was my cousin who booked the show, and him and his partner, and they actually even reduced their what they normally charge by half. So they were giving back to this country to even though they're all from Australia and so forth. So does it mean anything?
So
it was a very nice show.
So they weren't Irish tenors; they were Aussie tenors.
They were Aussies, yes,
Aussie
tenors. And so it was a very lovely show. And they sang all the popular. They did an incredible, Amazing Grace.
Oh yeah.
They were very, they did a lot of religious songs and Christmas songs and holiday songs, and it was interesting because when they came back from their encore, how they all go off the stage, and that's what he says, well, we're going to leave the stage after a last song, and you're all going to applaud, and then we're going to come back and do a few more songs. And it was a little joke and so forth. And when they came back, they actually did the Amazing Grace at that point in time, and I thought that was a little different and interesting, and
how they put it together there.
To have that, because usually when you come back from an encore, it's always one of their most, usually a performer's best song or popular song or something like that. And I was pleasantly surprised that they. It was very pleasing that they came back and sang Amazing Grace, and they did a great job. So that's what I did. And,
well, it sounds like fun. I had grandchildren over the weekend, and we had a good time. We watched the two of my grandchildren while my son and his wife did Christmas shopping. so we were, and then we went square dancing on Saturday night. And I put a plug out for square dancing. I'm going to tell you what, you need to be square dancing. It's a good exercise. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of clean fun, and we really enjoy it. We're not real good at it, but we really enjoy it.
I have clients who live in, I think they're in Kansas, and they do square dancing, and they're very, they're like in their 80s, and they're out there square dancing and enjoying it and having a very healthy senior
time together. It's almost like church social, because whoever the host club is, we're giving a little plug for, we're not even talking news here. They have a little meal. They have a mid break. They have to pay the caller to come in, and they have to pay whatever facility that they use for the dance, and but then they have a little dinner, kind of like carrying dinner at church. There's no drinking, no carrying, no carousing, and being goofy. Well, we're goofy, but I mean, it's all good fun. So.
Well, you just mentioned about no news, that we're not doing news. We're just kind of, But you know what? I was speaking to a listener on Friday, and he said, I like listening to your program. He says, because you're not the same as everyone else. He says, I mean, how many times we have to hear about the same old thing over and over and over again? And he says, listening to your program with Beth, he says, it's like, it's girl talk. It's not everyone can listen to girl talk, for an hour, and we don't do that for an hour. But he says you also bring interesting news that you don't hear everywhere else, and so I appreciated that, and I wanted to share that. And but I do want to talk about something that's probably everyone's going to be talking about here lately. Of course, the tax reform passed Saturday. We're going to talk.
We have been saved.
Well. And there's a whole lot of, ways to view this. They still have to chop it up. I saw one, he was a Democrat, I don't know who it was, and he held up the bill, and it was like maybe 4 inches thick. I don't know how many pages, but a minimum of 4 inches thick. And he's waving this book, and he's there. I got this 25 minutes before we were supposed to vote on it, or, something like that, a half hour or an hour before we were supposed to vote on this. And then he paged the pages, he flipped the pages, and he went to one, and I'm not supporting Democrats, folks, don't get me wrong, but this is the problem that we've had on both sides of the aisle. And there was just scribble in the, on the edge of the page, in the margin part of the page. He says you can't even read what was written there. And what it was somebody made these, something they wanted to change within this part of the bill. And he says, I could read one word of it. And it was just written in handwriting in the whole margin.
Were they present when they talked about it, though?
How much can you talk about? How much can you talk about when you have a 4-inch?
Let's give him credit. Why didn't the Republican Party do that when they were trying to pass Obamacare?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not cutting him any slack on what he's saying, but what he's doing, he's making a a visual out of it.
Yes.
Look, this is what they're asking us to do. And what did we do? We just made fun of Pelosi. Well, first we have to pass it, and then we'll read it. And it's like, this is what they do. So they've got this 4-inch book that they're supposed to be voting on, which is a bunch of baloney probably anyway. And it's all about reforming and simplifying our taxes. You got to see some humor in that.
And my question is, how can they actually say this is an overhaul of the tax reform? Because there are how many pages and adoptions over the years to this tax code. It's impossible to change the complete tax code in such a short period of time. It's impossible. So, it's, they'll pick that, they'll pick, the biggest ones that everyone knows about, but, you don't take, there's 10,000 different pages or something like that in the complete tax code. How can you reform all that into a 4-inch, So that was passed by the Republicans in the Senate over the weekend, and it may boost profits for industries from banking to retail to fossil fuels. It could put the squeeze on hospitals and renewable energy firms. While the plan is still subject to revision, the centerpiece of the existing legislation is a reduction in the corporate income tax from 20% from the current 35%. They might raise that still, along with some provisions that allow some companies to bring back hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign profits at a lower rate. We'll see if that works. The Senate bill preserves the alternative minimum tax for corporations after originally proposing to eliminate it. The bill went under a raft of last-minute changes on Friday, and of course then on Saturday they passed it. Asset managers. Here's some of the people that will really benefit from it. Asset managers, and you all know who it is. Bankers, Wall Street. Come on. Stocks of U.S.-based asset managers rose to a record last week on the optimism about the tax overhaul, and that's in part because asset managers typically pay tax rates of 30 to 35%. it's usually higher than many other industries because they really don't qualify for a lot of deductions because of their type of business. Asset managers also benefit from the rising equity markets as higher prices increase the value of the holdings they manage and improve the performance of their funds. Banks, lenders, including J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, they've rallied. Their stocks rallied on news of the bill's progress. Banks would be one of the clearest beneficiaries of this tax reform bill. This is from an Isaac Boltansky. He's an analyst. Sounds Russian. An analyst at just kidding. An analyst at Compass Point Research and Trading in Washington. If Republicans promise the faster economic growth are realized, the banks will, of course, benefit from the corresponding loan portfolio expansion, and banks would pay slightly higher rates than other types of companies under a new tax plan. And it goes on. Pharmaceuticals, they would be among those benefiting from paying a reduced tax load on repatriated earnings. Hospital insurers, the Senate bill's repeal of Obamacare's individual mandate won't help health insurers and hospitals. Which is interesting. I saw CVS put up a bid to buy Aetna.
Yes, I had that here in front of me somewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting to see a pharmaceutical, CVS, and an insurance company combined. So, I mean, that's what you're going to have.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
It's not surprising at all.
It's not surprising. Yeah. I mean,
what it's all about. It isn't about health care.
Get it all together so they can control you more. And it is all about, if you're not healthy, folks, you're just going to.
Well, let me give you a James Madison quote. It will be of little avail to the people if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood.
Yeah.
And that was a big quote, excuse me, that was going around, when Pelosi made her famous speech, first we have to pass it and then we'll read it. And somebody should have reminded that guy of that when he was holding it up, just because I think it's funny. I mean, it's just... it's the hypocrisy. He's right. It shouldn't be that way, but they both of them do it, and I'm not sure that, like you said, any of this is going to be helpful to.
No, but most of these bigger, corporations, they're all, certainly going to benefit, and they are it shouldn't be about the tax cuts are all for the wealthy, but when you look at the multinational corporations and who own them. And if anyone really thinks that it's going to trickle down and create more revenue and create a bigger tax base, I think it's going to be difficult. I think it will be difficult. We saw the dollar rise with the yields. Early this morning when I was up at 5, I turned on Bloomberg. I saw the futures on the Dow were up 200 points, all based on this. And, they were up that big, on Friday. And it's like, are you really kidding me? That, right now the market's up 280 points, up a little over 1%. It'll hit 25,000 before the end of the year. Let's see, I don't know where Bitcoin's at today. That's at 11.3. That's up 2%, so that came back on everything. And it's just real interesting how I follow an index. It's a fear and greed index, and it just kind of shows the trend of the mentality of the emotions that are driving the markets. And there's basically two emotions: fear and greed. And there's another emotion that's called going into a break. So we'll talk about this when we come back.
We're going to give the phone number. And 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning, and we'll be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Yuji. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. Melanie was she was kind of on a roll. We're going to let her take it back over, and we do have a caller to go to here in just a second.
Well, I was just talking a little bit about the Fear and Greed Index that I follow. It just kind of gives you a little idea what emotion is driving the market. And, you know, it has been so volatile. I mean, 1 minute it can be, and it goes from 0 to 100. And, of course, 100 is extreme greed, and extreme fear is 0. And right currently it's reading at about 75. But, I mean, it can drop. I mean, we've seen it fluctuate from like 39 to 75 to 80. And it's just like, you know, so there really isn't anything that's truly making sense in any of these markets. And since they quit the debt ceiling back in, 7 weeks ago, we've had our debt increase by over $700 billion, almost $1 trillion, in just, 12 weeks, I believe it, 12 or 7 weeks. I don't have the report. I talked a little bit about it on Friday on my financial survival program. So, I mean, it's just like, it just means nothing. There isn't anything that makes any difference. You're going to have that strong stock market. It's going to go higher. And we're just teetering on so many edges. It's so interesting to see what will be the catalyst that actually pushes this over the edge. I mean, we see everything. We talk about the debt. We talk about this. We talk about that. But it'll be interesting to see what truly propels us over the edge, because I think we're already gone over the edge, and we're just hanging onto that one branch that you catch as you're falling. I think we're holding on to that branch, and that branch is getting ready to break.
What is that? The old expression, faith isn't faith until it's all you're hanging on to.
Yes.
I had a poster, and it had a little kitty cat, and all he had was his claws left in the in the branch of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you never find a dead cat in a tree. Just saying.
All right. Let's go to Joe. Let's see what he has for us this morning. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Good morning, Melody and Beth. I have two questions that I would like to ask Melody. And so the first question is, I was listening to the replay of your show on Friday, the Financial Survival Show, and you were talking about they're starting a futures market in Bitcoin, for Bitcoin. And so, as I understand it, the people that know a lot about money and everything, they say that the reason that the price of gold and silver are much lower than they ought to be is because they're able to buy and sell a lot of paper gold on the future market. They're able to buy and sell a lot more paper gold and paper silver on the futures market than there is physical existence of the metal, and therefore the prices are lower because trading in paper gold and silver is, kind of keeping the value of the because so much paper is being traded, is diluting the value of the physical metal. And so will that do the same for Bitcoin? Will they create a whole lot of paper Bitcoin to trade on the futures market, which, vastly outnumbers the real Bitcoins, and will this depress the price of Bitcoins? And number two, I was talking to a man yesterday, and he was remarking that in a nearby town, I think it's Harrison, there's been a lot of new banks come up recently, and when he said that, I said, yeah, come to think of it, there's been a lot of new banks come into existence in Fayetteville here too, where I live also. And I said, well, maybe it's because Trump has taken off some of the regulations on the banks, so that it's easier to start a bank or something like that. And he said, no, this started under Obama, even before Trump became president. So, Melody, do you know why there's so many new banks coming into existence in the last couple of years? So those are the two questions I have for Melody, and I'll listen for the answer offline, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. First, with the Bitcoin, I believe when you have future contracts trading, you're going to have a lot more volatility to the price. And not only do they short the market that can have impacts on the physical product of the price, they can also run it too. They can also run a price higher, and they can short it and run it lower. So you do get a lot more volatility when a product that is being run on the contracts futures market. So yes, you will see more volatility to the up and to the downside, and it's taken away. And I think Bitcoin and some of these other cryptos that and they'll put them in funds now, and I think too. I think when it comes to the even though Bitcoin is growing, I'm not that sure. I know more about contracts than I do Bitcoin, but I believe there's a limited amount of Bitcoin that has been mined or created and so forth, which allows them to make the market, even though it's high in dollars, it's a small physical market. If you call Bitcoin physical, because it's nothing but digits, which is just, so that's what your futures so you're actually having a paper contract trade digits. That's not real. So to me, it's all kind of bizarre, but it's easier to move the markets also when you have a smaller market like that. We've seen it in silver. We've seen it in gold. They're relative to a lot of these other markets, they're small, easily manipulated. And to answer your question, yes, Joe, it will manipulate the prices both to the up and to the downside. And as far as banks, over the years since the Great Recession of 2008, you had a lot of banks that were absorbed by bigger banks. We saw very few after the initial recession, and after they started saving banks and the laws and the stimulus, the banks were absorbed. You didn't have the long list of banks closing their doors because bigger banks bought them because they were given incentives to buy these banks. And so I remember talking to my bank during the recession, and one of the head guys told me, he says, we didn't want money from the Federal Reserve. They made us take it. He says, we signed a contract with the Federal Reserve, and this was for them to use it, to buy banks, to buy other smaller banks that were having problems. He says, we signed it on one sheet of paper for this. He didn't tell me the amount of the loan. He says, but we had to take it because they initially denied it. He says, but then after a year, we had to keep it. They had to keep the funds for a year or something like that. He says, it was a book that we had to sign to give it back to them. He says, but when they forced it on us, it was a sheet, and to give it back to them, it was a book that they had to sign in order to give the money back. And so you've had these programs, so maybe you're seeing this change in the, I don't think it has to do with Trump's regulations, because these banks they just don't do things overnight. You just don't create banks overnight. And it's something in a long process. You can see ownership changes. You could see banks popping up. You'd have to look at who's the corporate, who the corporate people are, who's the shareholders, and maybe that could give you a clue in your area why some banks are popping up and so forth. So, no doubt things have gotten a little bit better in the economies and so forth, but I don't believe we have a strong economy. I don't believe the fundamentals are there. Sure, if you hit rock bottom and you throw enough money at something, sure, you're going to have some sort of a, positive signs, something that has been turned around and so forth. But it isn't real, because all of that money that was thrown at these markets and at these economies was on borrowed money. It's debt. Yeah. And that's the problem. So, we have, the debt that we pay, we're barely paying the interest on our debt. Forget the principal. That'll never be paid. Mm. So, and when they, increase it by, just without the debt ceiling, they have the budget deal, and, everybody's just on this, drunken, everything's going to be great, fine, and dandy. Well, I'm sorry. I want it to be. I would love to see things change. But as I always say, you have to go back and change the monetary policy for things to get better. And that won't happen until things get much worse.
Well, Bitcoin has always been kind of it's something that I just completely do not understand, because like you said, it's just digits, it's nothing. So people are buying nothing. They're just buying, it's like it's not even as good as a monopoly money is. Well, I guess they've made it have some kind of value, pretense value or pretend value, but it's something that's an anomaly to me. I don't quite understand it. But then there's a lot of things Beth doesn't understand. So.
Well, it's something that, I get the attraction. I had someone tell me that, well, we all know the paper markets are overvalued. Okay. The valuations have never been this high since the year 1900. Well, that should scare everybody to death if you're in the paper markets. So I get there's, people are scared of that. Bonds. Everybody knows the bonds are in a bubble. I was just reading an article prior to the show. And half the bonds, your European bonds, they're paying negative rates.
Right.
So, things are, the bonds are in a bubble, just not, globally they're in a bubble. So what else do you have? Bitcoin, gold and silver. I just pulled up the report from the bullion sales from the U.S. Mint earlier this morning. I wanted to see what the number was for the month of November. I'm ashamed to see these numbers of what people have been buying. The amount of silver eagles for the month of November, 385,000. Are you kidding me? For the month of September, they were 320,000, so they actually beat, that month. Those were the two worst months of the year. January of this year, 2017, there were over 5 million sold. February, there was 1.2, then 1.6, then we had a couple of 2.4 months, and then they just keep, but in the past, in these months where we've had, these record numbers in the stock markets, you've had very little interest in gold and silver. Then you want to know why prices are stagnant. You can blame a lot on manipulation. The guy at the head of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Duffy, the chairman, he said in an interview back in July, he says, if gold was adjusted for its inflation, it would be trading around $2,400. And he says, and based on the world problems, he says gold should be trading at $5,000 and $6,000. And it should. That's where we should be. That's why it's really the best investment to be buying out there over anything. Yeah, it's boring. Yeah, it's not, going up to, moving 6% a day or 10% a day like Bitcoin is. Certainly the stock market's, it's not as exciting. But, it gets to the point where that excitement is risk.
Well, it is risk. And I was just thinking all that glitters is not gold. They talk about things that are shiny that everybody gets attracted to. And I think that the stock market going up and up and up, we're paying attention to that, and it's showing that we've got a confidence going on. It doesn't really show anything other than that. I mean, it's based on confidence, and the Bitcoin is, I think, it's a desperation. People know that the paper money is not worth anything, so they're going to this digital money. I guess that's what I could call it, the Bitcoin, and for some reason, I guess gold and silver is just old-fashioned, Melody.
Well, it is to the globalists.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The globalists don't want you to have real money.
No.
And, they can't control you if you have real money. And it's all about control. And God bless Mr. Trump. But do you really believe he's going to be able to change our system unless it crashes first in the 4 years or even 8 years?
That's something I've wondered. What should I really be hoping for? What should we really be thinking? We know sometimes things have to get really bad before they get better. Should we be hoping for a collapse, or is that just going to be so astronomical to everyone? We don't want that, but how else is it going to right its wrongs? How else are we going to get back to the gold and silver standard? Donald Trump had mentioned that before he ever got elected about doing that.
Agreed. I mean, he talked about renegotiating the bonds. Mm-hmm. But I think once he got there, I think he was told what would happen. It's not going to be pretty. You will have massive social unrest in this. Not what we've seen so far, and what we've seen so far scares most of us.
Yeah.
But that's nothing to what we're going to experience when people go hungry. I was hearing with these tax reforms that they're not renewing various programs. I think there was one for the child. I can't recall, but it involved children or something like that. And the guy says, "Hey, I think it was Orrin Hatch. He said, we don't have money to pay for it." Well, if we don't have money, and I get that it's a social program, but if we don't have money to pay that, how can we pay for a $1.5 trillion tax reform that's going to put us in debt that much? I mean, if we don't have the money to pay a little.
We'd have to have the money for the children because we have to pay in the slush funds all the money for the Congress that are sleeping around and housing and being misbehaving and being naughty in the office.
Exactly. So again, I mean, I'm not supporting that. I agree, but I mean, let's look at the reality of things. It's not the only thing we can't afford.
It's not the only thing we can't afford.
Let's put
it that way.
Yes. Yeah. So, and to hear these, and everybody's just nodding their heads, applauding. It's just like, really? Or is anybody even listening?
The little monkey used to wind up, and he used to sit there and clap, put the symbols together. Is that what we've become?
Yeah. And it's just like, so, yes, I'm not hoping for, I'm not hoping for war with North Korea. I'm not hoping for bad things just for the price of gold and silver to go up. But I do know gold and silver is being manipulated, and it is the safest. It carries the least amount of risk that anything out there in this world. And as long as we have a fiat currency, you're going to continue to lose value regardless if they're able to keep the system together for another 20, 30 years. You're still going to be losing your value. I have a report here. Even a $1 million retirement nest egg isn't enough anymore. How many people in this country have $1 million? And that's not even enough anymore to retire. Why?
I don't even have 1 million pennies.
Why isn't that enough? You have a 60-year-old baby boomer retiring now with $1 million in the bank. He's going to generate $40,000 a year to live. The people can't live on that. And the longer this goes on, because of our currency, because of our dollar continuing to lose value, you're going to need 1.5 million, then 2 million. And so where does it end? Do you think people are going to have $2 million to retire? And the article that I'm talking about is talking about where people have to self-fund their retirement. Well, yeah, I get that. You know, which means everything is going to be collapsing. We have an inflation problem. We have a pension crisis. We have a longer life expectancy. So, you know, people aren't going to have the successful retirement that we've been told that we're going to have. You know, that we've seen advertised on television, on all the financial news programs, every program, that if you invest here and there, that you're going to live, you know, scot-free in your retirement for the next, you know, for a 30-year golden retirement. That's not going to happen anymore. So, and what are we going to do with these people, with the seniors that can't?
I know.
That don't have a retirement. That didn't save all these years because we were told they stole from us, putting it into an account, and then they stole it out of that account, slapped in a bunch of IOUs.
Make it look like, and try to make us feel like this is an entitlement. Well, it's not an entitlement because we've been paying into it. It's that they've been abusing and using it and spending it for whatever reason to break this country, I guess. But it's, yeah.
No, to pay, you know, because they,
which is why we have to do this ourselves. So you have to do whatever you can. And I guess, you know, the old thing, keep it simple. Stupid. I don't want to call anybody stupid, but we've got to keep it simple. And all of us fail to keep it simple. Congress fails to keep it simple. They do that on purpose because they want to hide things from the American people. But in your own personal affairs, you need to keep it simple. And we have too much stuff, for one thing. And I'm really bad. I'm a saver, a keeper, a hoarder. But we have too much stuff. We need to get rid of it. And we need to invest in gold and silver. And it's just that plain and simple. And I don't know how else to say that, but you need to give Melody a call at 1-800-375-4188. Or call her now, 717-300-1218. But yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, so yes, we have high stock market prices. You know, hey, if people want to, I mean, who would in their right mind buy Bitcoin at 11,000? Yeah, I know there's other, you know, cryptocurrencies and stuff that are a lot lower and so forth. But you know, when one goes, they're all going to go. You know, one's, you know, it's just the mentality. It's the herd mentality. You've got somebody in there that's going to be selling, everybody else is going to be selling. And when one runs to the door, they all run for the door. And so I'm not sure how many of the other ones would be spared for when the big one begins to get sold instead of buying. And that's the whole thing. You just need more people in there buying and buying and buying just to keep it going higher and higher and higher. And I'm sure it'll get to a high price stock market. Yeah, it's going to hit 25,000. Get it done. Get it over with. I think we just want some reality in our lives. You know, give us the reality. Reality is truth, and we're not getting the truth. And
no, we're not getting the truth anywhere. And I'll tell you what, moving on here. We have so much going on in this nation, and I was telling Melody before we started the show, I said, I try to take a little bit of a break on the news on the weekend, and I was busy this weekend with grandkids, and that's important. And I enjoy that very much. And at the same time, then I sit back down on Sunday evenings and I start watching the news, and it seems like it's a repeat. Well, some of them are repeats from Friday. The same old thing. Maybe some names have been changed. New people are under sexual harassment charges or allegations now, and it just goes on and on and on and on. These distractions, which I do believe, and I just wrote an article called something about the Pandora box has been opened. What does that do for us? We are under such a deep state. We are no longer the republic that we were designed to be. And this is something that maybe everybody thinks, well, this is just bad form, this is just bad etiquette, which it is. But President Barack Obama, he was in France, and he's telling them we have a temporary absence of American leadership on climate change. So he has been following President Donald Trump around. After President Donald Trump does his tours, then past President Barack Obama is following, trying to sweep up and change whatever promises that President, or deals, or whatever relationships that President Donald Trump is trying to heal with other countries. And here comes President Barack Obama trying to change all that right behind him. I find that to be very serious, Melody. I find that to be serious against the United States, and it's bothersome to me. I hear music. We are going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218, and Melody and Beth Ann will be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldandSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned to listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. As we were going into the break, I was talking about President Barack Obama while speaking to a group of business leaders in Paris, said to them, temporary absence of American leadership. Temporary absence of American leadership. This is a president of the United States. He served 2 terms. The American people made a decision that we wanted to go a different direction. Those 8 years weren't working for us. But they're not accepting that. He says, however, he noted, you're seeing American companies and states and cities continuing to work. Now, he's mainly talking about climate change in this particular venue. But he and Hillary Clinton have been going around and following the president and putting the president down and basically everything he does is wrong. They can't, and of course, the morning prior to Kim Jong-un's last missile attack, Hillary Clinton was going to give President Donald Trump advice, and he needed to back off and be gentler with Kim Un, or whatever his name is. And this is just more distractions for one thing. But I think it's a serious decline of how we are seen in the world arena. We're seen as a people that haven't got a clue who we are anymore, and we're certainly not seen as a people with a republic or even what they want to call a democracy with representation. We don't have representation when we have these 2 parties bickering like they do, and I don't believe they really disagree all that much. I believe they disagree with President Donald Trump, but and there's a few Republicans that are true conservatives or true constitutionalists. But this is not just bad form and bad etiquette. This is bad for the country that President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are going around putting down the current president at every turn. Not just once in a while, at every single turn. And I think it's serious. But that's just Beth. I think it's very serious.
Well, I mean, I do agree. It's not right, and you would think that being in the positions that they've held, that there is some sort of
that position
for the country, more so for even the country than even the position or even that person. So it should be for the country. But what's interesting is, they're toting going around the world talking about climate change. Well, I think it's today and tomorrow that they're having a summit in Chicago. They're hosting a global summit on climate change. And I'm thinking to myself, well, Chicago, don't you have worse problems than worrying about global climate change? And, but they're bringing in all sorts of leaders. Mayor Rahm Emanuel, I'm not going to call him any names because then I'll start sounding like them. But he's calling leaders of the NAFTA cities, meaning U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So they're going to be the mayors, and I don't know if they're the only ones that are going to be there. And what's interesting is that we're 40% on our way toward the Paris Agreement already. Really? How can you be 40% on the way to the Paris Agreement when we pulled out of the Paris Agreement? So is Chicago doing their own deal with the Paris Agreement?
Well, they
going outside the limits of government, of the United States government?
I think.
How does that happen?
I think if they are, they should stop. If they're doing things with federal money, then they should stop getting federal money.
Exactly.
And I still believe, I agree with President Trump and Attorney General Sessions. If these people in the states want to be sanctuary states and go against the federal law, then they need to forego any federal funding, any federal money, any federal grants, everything done, stopped.
Yeah, how does Chicago...
They're on their own.
Yeah, he talks about they have plans on how they're going to reach the Paris protocols, then make our information public. We're going to do this first, I will make it public. He talks about his commitment to shift electricity use at more than 900 government buildings to 100% renewable energy by 2050. Who's going to pay for it? People in Illinois don't have the money to pay for it. They can't even do they're belly up broke, bankrupt. They have no money. So who in the heck's going to pay for all of this? Or are they going to be taking it out of the rest of the pensions that they can't afford, that are underfunded now anyway? Well, we can't pay for that anyway, so we'll take whatever's left in there, and we're going to put this
pay Paul.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's I can't believe this guy gets elected.
Yeah.
How do these people...
I can't believe a lot of them get elected.
Yeah.
How did this... what's
Conyers.
his name? Conyers. How does he keep getting elected? How does Pelosi keep getting elected? How does Feinstein keep getting elected? How does Maxine Waters keep getting elected? How does Roy Blunt keep getting elected? How does Claire McCaskill keep getting elected? I can't believe it. And John McCain. And how do these people keep getting in there? Presidents come and presidents go. But Congress stays. So if you want to blame anything on anybody, you better be blaming Congress.
So, I mean, it's just so when you brought up them about, globe-trotting with the climate exchange elite, we got one right here in our backyard. That's like, all right, you're going to hold your own global meeting. It's just no discussion on that. No comments on that. No, I don't know.
Well, I wrote an article several years back, and it was a very popular article. I wrote it when Jerry Brownfield was still alive. I wrote it for his newsletter. And it's been reposted and republished more than once. It was called Land of Pretending. We just sit here and pretend that we have liberty and freedom. And we've become serfs on the land. We see what's going on right now with that Pandora box open. We have seen the evil in D.C. and across this land. We've seen it, but we've been ignoring it. But now it's like in our face. Whether it's the mainstream media and others or these elected officials, not only are they misbehaving, but they're using tax dollars to cover their tracks. They believe themselves to be elite and above the law. And the journalists no longer exist. They will say and do anything. And Brian Ross got in trouble last week. I'm sure you knew about that. And it was because he misrepresented. He just plain out lied. And he knew it was a lie, and he did it anyway. Well, he got suspended without pay for, 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know how much he's making, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to miss that 3 or 4 weeks of pay. They don't do any more investigation. They don't report news. They report emotions. They have an agenda. Their agenda is to hate Donald Trump. He's been marked as a hate group himself by the Southern Poverty Law. Well, actually, it was another news outlet, but they were citing the Southern Poverty Law, what they call that group that we know is a hate group in and of itself. But this had to do, his report had to, I'm sorry, say that again.
NAACP? Is it?
No, it's the Southern Law.
The Southern Poverty Law?
Yeah, I'm trying to think the group. I can't think of their names. I've got it right here in front of me somewhere. I mix papers up worse than anybody. Jerry Brownfield taught me well. But anyway, it was Newsweek, and they were quoting some of what they were saying. Of course, we already know that they're a hate group, and many, kind of sad I'm not on their list just yet. Maybe if we keep going, we'll make that list too. But Brian Ross, he misrepresented, and he just flat out lied about about Michael Flynn and the relationship with Donald Trump and when certain things were said and done. And it was blatant. It was meant to do something. They took them a little while to bring it back down and to make their apology and to then, suspend him. Oh, my goodness, we're done already this morning? Oh, my goodness. Anyway, the point is they do this on purpose to deceive we the people. And we've got to stop falling for it. And that's why Melody and Beth Ann are here every day. That's why Beth Ann is here with CSC Talk Radio every day. And that's why Melody has her financial survivor every day. We're out of time. We're out of time.
Yes,
Melody.
we are. Yes, we are.
We will see you tomorrow morning right here on Power Talks. And write the number down so you can join us at 717-300-1218. Melody Beth Ann.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.